Welcome to the show, everybody. We talked yesterday about really the sort of inevitability that if Republicans want to pass this tax bill, they are going to pass this tax bill. And as happened in the Senate, my expectation over on the House side, where the bill finds itself back today, is that there will be goodies and amendments and modifications handed out to the critical Republicans until such time that they get the votes that they need. From a strategic perspective, the best we can do is, can we get some good stuff into the bill, and can we get some of the worst stuff out of the bill? But I believe that the bill is ultimately going to pass. There's this idea that's pushed to a great degree by MAGA media that the reason that the Republicans are ultimately going to do what Trump wants, that the reason that Trump leads the Republican Party is because he's a strong, bold, intelligent, deal-making businessman. Blah, 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 right? Fill in the blanks with whatever words you want, but it's some version of that. But what we actually are seeing over and over and over again is something that's way more pathetic, which is that Trump owns them and they are afraid of Donald Trump. That's actually what the evidence shows. It's not that Trump is a clever political chess master. It's not that Trump meets with the Republicans and explains to them, oh, you're misunderstanding the economic principles at play, and let me explain to you supply and demand. Now, I know you didn't think that that was the case, but what it actually comes down to is we will do what Trump wants in some shape or form, even if it's nonsense, because we're afraid and because it's what Trump wants. So that is the case that I'm going to make to you here, because over the last 24 hours, we have 3-4 examples of this that we can look at. That's the whole explanation. Over the last 24 hours, a number of Republicans have gone and met with Trump, went in skeptical about the bill, and came out saying, I think the bill's going to be good. The whole explanation is Trump owns them. There was no new data presented in these private meetings with Donald Trump or phone calls. There's been no revised analysis from the Congressional Budget Office or economists. There have been no improvements to the actual policy. Here's an example. Congressman Ralph Norman appears on CNBC, and he is asked, it seems like you were persuaded by talking to Trump. What is it that's going on here? And Ralph Norman goes, he's going to do some stuff for me by executive order. That's all it took. Take a listen to this.
Sir, what I don't understand is you had a view that was negative about this bill yesterday. Is there something different about the bill today?
Yeah, it is. We met with President Trump, and he
What's different about the bill from yesterday to today? Well, we met with Trump.
Did a masterful job of laying out how we could improve it, how he could use, as his chief executive office, use things to make the bill better.
So there's going to be there are big distinctions between. I guess what I'm trying to understand is the bill that was sent from the Senate back to you is fundamentally different from yesterday to today, because then the Senate would have to.
Fundamentally different. No, we accepted the bill as is. What's different is President Trump is going to use his powers to, like on the subsidies, to make sure that a lot of these subsidies won't remain in effect, from here on out.
If you're listening for the philosophical, economic, technical, logistical, moral changes that made Ralph Norman go, here was my interpretation yesterday. Here's my new interpretation today. You're not going to get it, because the translation is the bill's bad. We're going to pass it anyway because Trump says that we should, and he's going to sign some executive orders for us a little bit later, which, by the way, isn't how the law is supposed to work. I don't even want to get derailed on that, but this is not the way that we are supposed to be making law in the United States. When you are in a cult, the facts never matter. The dear leader said it's fine. The dear leader said he's going to get you some goodies, and that's all you need to know. On the question of growth and the idea that this is a bill that is going to generate economic growth, That also came up. Let's listen to another clip.
It sounds to me in some way that you were saying that the president persuaded you by saying that he is going to some degree, override some of the provisions in the bill. Is that right?
No, he's not going to override it. He's going to on the permitting, he's going to drive a hard bargain on the permitting. He's going to have accountability is the best way to describe it. And he assured us he was going to do that. And I think some executive orders you'll see come down the pipe, which will be good.
My concerns about the bad things in the bill were not actually dealt with. They're going to still be bad, but Trump will pass some executive orders. Wow, what a brave philosophical consideration. Now, here's an interview it's also on CNBC, between Andrew Ross Sorkin and Congressman Tom Emmer. And Tom Emmer was asked, these growth numbers about how this bill is just going to stimulate so much growth, actual economists, serious analyses of the bill, they don't conclude that the bill is going to generate this growth. How did you get that number? And Tom Emmer goes, Trump told me the number.
Why are we currently not getting 2.8% growth today, with the assumption if the CBO is at 1.8 and the administration's at 2.8, and part of what we're talking about here is extending the tax cuts that are already in place, and yes, you're going to capture no tax on tips, and maybe that'll drive some of this, but what is going to get you to the 2.8 number?
It's Donald Trump. Donald Trump and this legislation. Keep in mind, we've had 4 years of disaster under Joe Biden. Donald Trump has only had a little less than 6 months to try and fix this thing, and already you've seen enormous changes. In the CBO, by the way, 1.8% growth is what they projected over the next 10 years. This country has never had less than 2% growth in any 10-year period. So be careful of the numbers that these insiders put out, because bottom line is we've seen it all throughout history.
Now understand that the CBO is only a group of insiders who can't be trusted when their conclusions and their analyses are inconvenient to Republicans. When the CBO comes up with something Republicans like, there is no better and less biased entity that could be analyzing the bill. But you really need to understand how to listen to what these people are saying. There is no actual plan. There is no actual model that says growth is going to explode thanks to this bill. There's no investment strategy. It's that Trump said the bill will generate huge growth. And so Republicans have to come and say the bill's going to generate huge growth, even if there is no such analysis. What calculation leads you to believe that there is going to be growth that the CBO doesn't believe there will be? Well, we've had growth in this country in the past. We always have growth over 10-year periods that's above 2%. Now understand that even if you want to rely on that historical metric, 2% is much closer to 1.8 than it is to 2.8. And so even if you say to Emmer, hey, you know what, Tom, you're right. We've always had 10-year periods in this country where on average, we end up getting 2% growth. That's pretty close to what the CBO is saying. The CBO would have to be only off by a little bit to make you correct. Trump has to convince us that the CBO is off by a lot to get to his number of 2.8% growth. Anyway, the point here is the numbers don't really matter so much as this is worship. This is worship of a cult leader. And the dangerous part is that they are now just acknowledging the policy doesn't matter. They don't need a way to justify economically what they claim is going to happen. They don't need a way to justify logistically what they believe is going to happen. The economic models don't matter. What matters is Trump wants it. We are watching a major political party, not just influenced by Trump, but reduced by Trump. Their autonomy and sovereignty as a party and as lawmakers has been taken by Trump because they're not even really legislators anymore. I'm so sorry. Trump's cucking them. I'm so sorry to use the word that some consider to be in poor taste. When Trump says, abandon your views, I'm going to tell you what to believe, what to say, and what to do. Forget the math, forget logic, forget economic basics. They proudly do it. They go, I met with Trump and he told me that this is what's going to happen. So at this point, Republican governance is sort of like you have a magic 8-ball, and the answer is always whatever Trump says. That's it. Doesn't matter what the bill is. Doesn't matter if the numbers add up. Doesn't matter if they believe the opposite yesterday. The man has spoken, and so they are going to obey. And the bigger part of it is the impetus is that they're terrified. And that's where I want to go next. You know, for weeks now, discussions have focused on Trump's big, beautiful bill and its potential Medicaid cuts. However, a far more dangerous, overlooked provision in the bill exists. At ground.news/Pacman, you'll discover what MAGA lawmakers quietly included, a provision that could block federal judges from enforcing court orders unless a bond is posted. And if this passes, it could render Trump above the law. This is a critical detail. It's largely unknown, and it really exemplifies this flood the zone strategy of the Trump administration. Now, this is why ground news is essential. It really is the best way to uncover buried information by showing you not just the story, but its origins across the political spectrum. You can see bias ratings, credibility scores, coverage timelines, and their browser extension also will flag potential bias when you're on a news site, sort of guiding you to more reliable sources for fact checking. Ground News gives you a smarter and more reliable way to stay informed. I'm partnering with them to give you 40% off their unlimited Vantage plan, which makes it just $5 a month. Visit ground.news/Pacman, scan the QR code, or use the code Pacman in the app to start. The link is in the description.